Courtney Brown is a mathematician and social scientist who teaches in the Department of Political Science at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Independent of his work at the university, he is also the leading scholar on the subject of remote viewing, as it is done using procedures that were developed by the U.S. military and used for espionage purposes. Dr. Brown is director and founder of the Farsight Institute, a nonprofit research and educational organization dedicated to the study of remote viewing. He has published peer-reviewed research in premier scientific outlets and has spoken around the world on this subject. His recently published book, Remote Viewing, The Science and Theory of Non-Physical Perception, is the only book where the science of remote viewing is developed with respect to highly structured data collection methodologies. In it, he develops a new theory that explains remote viewing as a consequence of quantum mechanics. Courtney received his PhD in political science from Washington University with an emphasis on mathematical modeling. He has long been active in performance and theater. He sings in the Atlanta area as a baritone soloist of sacred music, and some of his recordings are heard both in the U.S. and Africa. He has acted in a number of TV series and films in the U.S. and Africa. Dr. Courtney Brown, welcome to the Global Freedom Report.
Brent, I want to thank you very much for inviting me on your show.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. I want to start with the really important stuff. What TV shows and films have you acted?
Well, in East Africa, that would be Kenya as well as Tanzania, I played the part of Dr. Livingston. And that was a very interesting television series that included 11 episodes. And also I played in another series that was called Sultan Bargash. And so there was a number of TV shows that I played in, and usually series that were done in Africa. Dr. Livingston was the part that I played, and that was probably the most interesting one. That was a show called Susie Nachuma. It was done in Swahili, interestingly.
Oh, do you speak Swahili?
Yeah, I'm fluent in Swahili. Academics are often fluent in some language. The question is always which language are they fluent in?
How do you say liberty or freedom in Swahili?
Let me get back to you on that one, because I want to make a good translation for that. That's not a typical thing that would be. Independence is the one they would typically talk about, which would be uhuru.
Okay. Uhuru, okay, very good. I have to tell you, my first and greatest love has always been the theater. I have performed since I was quite young. So when I see that you're a theater person, immediately I feel a certain camaraderie with you. What kind of stuff have you done in the theater?
Well, then I was in movies and television commercials when I was starting as a senior in high school and then into college. I played everything from extras on soap operas, Another World-Based City in Somerset, as well as a lead in a movie and some commercials for typewriters, leads in commercials for typewriters and so on. And then I stopped doing that and I started working on my academics full time. And then it was when I was living in Africa as a Peace Corps volunteer, that's how I did my service for the nation, that I started working as a TV person, as in the series that I was talking about, as a side, is a sort of it's just sort of an extra thing. It had nothing to do with my Peace Corps volunteer work. It was just an extra activity that I was offered, and I said, sure, why not? I'll do that. And so they ended up giving me the part of Dr. Livingston in a 11...
Dr. Livingston, I presume.
Yeah, it was, I actually played that particular
I think once it's in your blood, it's never out of your blood in that, I do radio. I've been doing radio for 20 years now, but much of my theater experience goes into the work that I do on the air here as well, and so it's...
that's another thing, Brent, that's important for my college students, that so many of my students no longer take theater, drama, or speech classes, and that's a real shame. It's a real lacking in their education.
I tend to agree. I find it to be, it uses so much of you. It uses your mind, your heart, your soul. Every aspect of what a human is goes into theater.
Look, there's something else, Brent. When you're speaking right now, I can hear that you're pronouncing all of your consonants, the C's, the T's, the S's, and so on. Those consonants typically are not pronounced by college students these days, teenagers. They mumble, and they can't really be understood by people that are 50, 40 years old because those consonants are mumbled. And when they go into law school, when they go into business school, or when they go into private enterprise, they lack that ability to effectively communicate because they're not taking those speech, theater, drama courses anymore.
That's absolutely true. When I remember many years ago, I was doing a performance off Broadway of Wuthering Heights, and I played Linton, the man Catherine was supposed to marry. For those who are saying, what, Catherine and Heathcliff, come on, folks. Come on, get a little bit of your theatrical history in there. Anyway, I had to learn how to speak so clearly that I sounded like a 17th century or 18th century stiff. And I had to actually do an exercise where I would whisper and hear the consonants and the vowels bounce off the far wall of the warehouse we were doing the rehearsals in and come back to me. It was one of the greatest lessons I had in how to project my voice and how to clearly enunciate the words that I speak. So, yeah, what you're saying is absolutely right on. And I find it true as well that I regularly listen to, TV shows even, or news broadcasts even. I'll go, huh, what did he say? What did he say? Because they don't speak as clearly as we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, I want to move on. I have one other unrelated question for you. Just because you spend so much time in East Africa and that region of the world, do you have any insights whatsoever into the Obama birth question? Evidence suggests Obama was born in Kenya. Even people in Kenya have suggested that. Do you have any insights as an outsider, having been in that part of the world?
Well, I have a lot of contacts in Kenya, and I have never taken that idea seriously. I have always found it absolutely uncontroversial that he was born in Hawaii. So I have a great many contacts in Kenya, so including family members, and nobody that I know thinks that in a serious way.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Let's get down to the topic of the day here. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the term, what exactly is remote viewing?
Okay, remote viewing is a trainable mental procedure. It's done with your normal waking state of consciousness, and it was developed by the United States military and used for espionage purposes in official programs that they had that were closed down in November of 1995 when the program became public because it was too much of a scandal for them. My assumption is, and the assumption of many people that I work with, is that they immediately reopened the program and their work in remote viewing is much bigger now than it was even before. And if that ever becomes public, then they will close that down and start up another one. So remote viewing is a trainable mental procedure. It was done in the programs that were done in the military by the Defense Intelligence Agency, that's the DIA, and the CIA, and it often had places where it was developed, such as Stanford Research Institute, Princeton Engineering and Anomalies Research, and so on. But the basic idea is that they had two sort of areas where they were working. The first was in an official program within the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, and that's where people like Lynn Buchanan, who's the lead instructor of a form of remote viewing called Controlled Remote Viewing, or CRV, came out of. But they also had an unofficial, what you might call a movement within the military, and that's where Glenn Wheaton, who runs the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild, where he came out of Special Forces Intelligence, was introduced to the issue of remote viewing. And that is the area that is the focus of the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, that was recently very popular, starring George Clooney. So there's two areas where remote viewing was actually done, and then it was it came out public, and it's a bit of a joke that I play on myself to say that I am the leading academic that studies remote viewing as it is done using these military or military-derived methodologies, because I poke fun at my other academics because I am the leading because I am the only academic that does this. And it's sort of ridiculous that other academics are so hesitant to want to know more about this. Maybe they actually want to know, but they're frightened with respect to their reputation or so on. But my reputation is solid. 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, people thought I was deluded. They laughed. I was an object of ridicule. But, Brent, I can tell you now without any question that no one is laughing anymore. There are no people who are saying I'm deluded or laughing. Everyone who was sort of skeptical before is now in one of those waiting to exhale moments. You know, the movie starred Whitney Houston called Waiting to Exhale? Well, it's like one of those moments. They're just sort of saying, oh my gosh, this may actually be real, this may actually be true. Since then, I've spoken at universities. Go ahead, Brent.
What is the... let me interrupt a second here. What is the objective of the process?
The process is very simple. Remote viewing is done...
What the process is, what is it trying to accomplish?
Remote viewing is done in order to obtain descriptive information about any place, person, event across the past, present, or future. It is an ability that people can train to do, to be able to describe, using pieces of paper, 10 to 20 pages of paper, anything from the Battle of Gettysburg to what's going on in the Kremlin to anything, military, non-military related, anything.
Hang on, because I want to try and build this so that the listening audience can have a clear understanding of it, and myself as well. First, is remote viewing considered to be a science at this point?
Yes, among those people, it's a phenomenon, and there is a science, a field of science around it. And it's not yet taught, or the subject is not taught at the universities. However, I am invited to speak at prestigious university settings all over the country. I have spoken many places, including to a group of Nobel's physicists in Lucerne. And so the interest is huge on remote viewing right now, because what it clearly demonstrates is that we are able to transfer information, such as perceptions, across time and space in clear violation of the laws of physics, relativity as well as classical. And this will point the direction towards a complete reorganization of our understanding of physical reality, the laws of physics, and everything. The operational use of remote viewing is a little bit nerve-wracking with respect to policymakers, governmental sources, because they're a little concerned that remote viewing would be used to look at things that they want to keep secret. So really what we're talking about is not just a educational awakening of the human population to what is the nature of physical reality, but we're also talking about the possibility of a new form of governance for humankind, governance in the absence of secrecy. You see, right now, and this may appeal to some of your audience, we govern ourselves based on secrecy. Everything that the governments do is done in a way to obtain some type of event, some type of result, so that they give you information that they think you will need in order to lead you to certain outcomes. But now, whether it's the Federal Reserve Board, congressional hearings, whether it's stuff that goes on in the White House or the military, it's all economic or governmental based on secrecy. And now we're entering a realm in which the idea of governance by secrecy may become not completely obsolete, but in the direction of not so dominant anymore, which would be a new era. humankind.
I'm not sure that the people who are in the governments these days would be very happy about that, or would be very willing to allow it to happen without some drastic circumstances. But I studied what you refer to as controlled remote viewing just a bit, and it's my understanding, and I want you to tell me if this is accurate, it's my understanding that it is based on the rough principle that the world is like a hologram, with every impression indelibly represented in any part of the matrix. Thus, you can be located in one region and view events or structures or whatever in a completely different region. Is that kind of something of an accurate understanding?
Yes, it is. In fact, I have developed an extensive theory of how remote viewing is physically possible in the first place. And I was at the University of Colorado at Boulder this summer, and in Boulder, Colorado, I gave a talk to the Society of Scientific Exploration on the physics of remote viewing, how it is possible. And I recorded that. That was recorded, and it is available on our website. If you don't mind, I'll give the website so people can find out where that recording is, and it's free. And that's www.farsight, that's FARSIGHT.org, O-R-G, because we're a nonprofit.
And by the way, we'll give that out again, and we'll also have that on the links page of our website, so people will have access to that information.
But your thought that you just had is correct.
Okay. Now you made a comment before, and I was going to ask you about it anyway, even if you didn't make the comment. Okay, that you could see into the future, you can see into the past. Now, I have a feeling this is going to take us into a discussion of quantum mechanics, but I can really accept the viability of remote viewing, okay, in the present. I have some difficulty. I'm not totally oblivious to the theories of quantum physics, but I'm not a quantum physicist. I have some difficulty in accepting that remote viewing can see into the future, can see into the past. Can you comment a bit on that, with the understanding this is a radio show and we don't have hours to go through a full lecture?
Right. There is no difference in a practical level between remote viewing the present and remote viewing something in the past. Remote viewing is always done under totally blind conditions, which means that the remote viewer is not told anything in advance about that which she or he is supposed to perceive that is held somewhere else. They do the procedures mechanically and come up with 10 to 20 pages of very detailed data regarding what the target or the focus of perception is. And it has no practical difference with respect to whether it's in the present, meaning an area or event or place that is existing at the time that the remote viewing is occurring, or if it's something in the past. The results are absolutely the same. There is a difference with respect to remote viewing the future. And without going into the science of it, the future is a little bit more dicey, because there's many different ways that the future can turn out. And from the theory of remote viewing that I have presented elsewhere, all of these various ways actually do exist in real form, just as real as you and I are talking today. And so pinning down which one of those futures to remote view has always been more difficult. We did, however, do a 1-year experiment that was with all full scientific controls, with public validation of all of the data collection at the Farsight Institute, and that was called the Multiple Universes Project, where we demonstrated that under certain conditions with a very interesting experimental design, we were able to perceive the future. These remote viewers were able to describe the future each and every time, 11 straight times in a row, spanning a year. So they actually described future events that were 1 month out into the future under conditions that were seemingly physically impossible, but in fact, that actually did work. Those data and the experiment were recently published in a leading peer-reviewed scientific journal called the Journal of Scientific Exploration, and a link to a free copy of the article is also on our website with a banner that says latest peer-reviewed published research, remote viewing the future. And so your listeners can, in fact, read that article as well. So is there a science related to remote viewing? Absolutely. Has it yet penetrated the university level so that the subject and the science is taught at the university level? No. But am I invited to speak at universities all over in very prestigious settings?
Yes.
Yes. So the subject is starting to get out there, and in another 20, 30 years, it will be a subject that all high school kids will be